You are not separated from that version of yourself that possesses everything desired. You are connected to it. The field awaits the signal. This signal is not simply what you desire. It is who you decide to become. There exists a version of you that already lives that life you dream of. This version does not exist in theory. It exists in frequency. Through the mysterious mechanisms of quantum entanglement, you are already connected to it right now. Not tomorrow. Not after you heal. Not after you learn to manifest correctly right now. The question is not whether your dream is real. The question is why you have not tuned into it yet. If your life seems stuck, if goals seem unattainable, it is not because they are far away. It is because your current identity is still entangled with the version of you that doubts, procrastinates, and self-destructs. But in the moment when you change who you consider yourself to be, not in thoughts but in state, everything begins to rearrange. And here is the truth. Most people will never know how this works. They spend life trying to impose changes from the outside, fussing, fighting, pushing. And even when they find a spiritual path, they repeat the same mistake. They try to visualize the way into a new life instead of destroying the identity that holds them in the old one. That is why this is not just another explanation of the law of attraction. This is a breakdown of reality and a guide to compressing timelines. Because here two powerful concepts meet: quantum entanglement and quantum jump. Entanglement explains why your energy affects matter, why your state affects outcomes, and why even subconscious programs do not work in isolation. You are constantly broadcasting a signal into the quantum field. This signal is not your words, it is your vibration. It is how your identity interacts with possibilities. Quantum jump, on the other hand, is often misunderstood. It is not magic. It is not escape. It is a restructuring of identity that allows moving between entangled realities. Realities where different versions of you already exist, awaiting observation, activation, living. And here is where it becomes amazing. You have already felt this. That moment when you made a decision and everything changed instantly. That was a jump. That sudden shift in perception, where you saw yourself differently even for just a second. That was a ripple in the timeline. That intuitive feeling that you are destined for more. It is not fantasy. It is your future self seeping through the cracks. In the quantum field, time is not linear. It is layered, which means your future self can reach back just as easily as you can reach forward. You are in a feedback loop with the version of you that has already achieved, and the connection is active right now. This is the code. This is the secret. The field does not need your efforts. It needs your coherence, your clarity, that your frequency matches what you are asking for, not with words, but with being. So in this material, we will break down everything you thought you knew about manifestation and walk step by step through the most powerful tool you never fully understood. How quantum entanglement makes jumps across timelines not only possible but inevitable when you know how to use it. And no, this will not be about visualization, not about desires, hopes, or attempts. This is about destroying identity, aligning frequency. Reality is code. In the next part, I will show exactly how entanglement works, not only in subatomic particles, but in your own life. We will talk about the science behind it, but more importantly, I will show how it explains everything that ever seemed wrong in your reality. The version of you that has everything you want is already connected to you. Let us figure out why you have not jumped yet. Quantum entanglement is not just a theory. It is one of the most well-documented and least understood phenomena in modern physics. In simple terms, it means that two particles, once connected, remain linked in such a way that changing one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But what no one talks about is what this means for you, for your consciousness, your identity, and your reality. Because if matter can behave this way, why not you? You are not one particle in a void. You are a living, breathing field of consciousness, and like those particles, you are entangled not only with other people, but with versions of yourself that exist across timelines. Versions that made different decisions, followed different instincts, healed instead of fleeing, jumped instead of waiting, chose instead of doubting. You are not disconnected from them. You vibrate in sync or out of sync with them. And that creates the version of you that the field reflects back as your life. But here is the glitch. Most people remain entangled with the version of themselves that is still surviving, holding on, fearing, not because they want to, but because they were trained to. Through repetitions, through traumas, through identity loops so deep that they no longer question them. And what you remain entangled with, you amplify, you broadcast, you collapse into reality. So when people say, "I tried to manifest but nothing works," the problem is not in the efforts. It is that their signal, the deep subconscious one, is still broadcasting from the version of them that does not believe, does not move, does not act as if the new reality is already theirs. And here is where the field gets strict. The quantum field does not respond to desires, not to begging, not even to visualization alone. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is not determined by what you think for 5 minutes a day. It is shaped by what you embody every moment. You are the observer. And the observer collapses the timeline. But which version of you is observing? This is the question most people never ask. And that is why most never jump. Because the jump is not something you do. It is something you become. You cannot quantum jump into the life of your dreams if you are still acting from the version of you that does not feel worthy of it. You cannot shift timelines by visualizing success while making decisions based on fear. The field does not care about your words. It cares about what you are entangled with, what you amplify through behavior, focus, energy. And sometimes the version of you that has what you want is actually pulling on the thread. You feel it in flashes, in dreams, in moments where reality seems thin. You get glimpses of that other life. Not because you imagine, but because you are seeping into it. It is seeping into you. The connection is already active. The question is, how long will you ignore it? In the next part, I will show exactly how to start re-entangling your field. Not just through belief or thinking, but through direct intentional destruction of identity. That is how we jump. That is how we move. That is how we stop the loops and start the shifts. But before we go there, pause for a moment. If this message resonates with you, it means you are already remembering something, not learning, but remembering. This is what happens when entanglement activates. You are not hearing something new. You are recognizing something old. So if you felt something stir in you while watching, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for you. For the version of you that is ready to activate. And tell me something in the comments. Which timeline are you tired of living? Not the one you want, but the one you are ready to destroy. Name it. Acknowledge it. This is the first step to letting go. Now ready to meet the method? You were entangled with the version of you that doubts, procrastinates, compromises. But the version of you that has already made the jump is not somewhere out there. It is already observing. The only reason you have not become it is that the identity you are now destroying keeps pulling you back into the same movie. Now it is time to rewrite the observer. You see, every moment you choose which version of you stands behind your eyes. Most people do not realize this. They think they are their thoughts, habits, personality, but all that is software. What most forget is that you are the one who chooses the operating system, and you can reboot at any moment. This is the key to the quantum jump. Not becoming something new, but choosing to stop observing from the self entangled with limitations. The jump does not happen through action. It happens through destruction. So how do we do this? Let us start with what you will not do. You will not visualize. You will not chant mantras. You will not close your eyes and pretend you are somewhere else. Not yet. That is what the old self tries to do to escape. But the jump is not escape. It is return. We start with one thing only: awareness. Start asking yourself this question right now, without evasion. Who is the version of me that is now choosing this life? What are their beliefs, fears, core assumptions about reality? How do they talk to themselves when no one is listening? Really feel it. You will start noticing a pattern, a taste of energy, a weight in the chest or a tightness in the throat. This is not coincidence. This is the imprint of the current observer, and you have been collapsing reality through it for years. Now here is the next question, and it may be the most important one you ever ask yourself. Am I ready to let this version of me die? Because that is what the jump really is. It is not a leap across timelines. It is a funeral. It is a quiet, conscious, sacred death of the self that can no longer carry your future. And most people are not ready to let go of it, not because it is good, but because it is familiar. Familiar pain, familiar struggle, familiar identity. Even suffering can feel like home when you have decorated it with enough reasons to stay. But right now, in this moment, you have a choice. So here is the method. It has no fancy name. It is not a technique. It is conscious realignment in 3 parts. Part 1. Become aware. Sit in absolute presence with the version of you that you are ready to destroy. Let it speak. Let it be seen. Not judged. Seen. Most timelines do not fade because they are resisted. They fade because they are outgrown with grace. Part 2. Sever. Here you shift the entanglement. Say out loud or inside a simple truth. This is no longer who I am. I release this version. I destroy this observer. You will feel resistance. That is natural. The old self fights for life, but it has power only if you believe its voice is still yours. Part 3. Choose. Once the field is cleared, choose the new identity. But do not just think about it. Embody it. Stand as they do. Breathe as they do. Decide from their frequency. Do not ask, what would the version of me that has everything do? Ask, what does this version no longer tolerate? And stop tolerating it now. These steps are not a one-time ritual. They are a way of being. Every day, every breath, is amplifying the new entanglement. And over time, not in years, but in energy cycles, the field will adjust, because it has no choice. This is the rule of quantum mechanics. The observer collapses the wave into a particle. Reality matches the identity of the observer, but only when that identity is consistent. And here is the beauty of it all. The version of you that already lives the life you want is not a stranger, not some future avatar. It is a memory encoded in your energy field, a path that is still active, waiting for you to walk it. We will talk about what happens after the jump, because the jump is not the end. It is the beginning of restructuring, and without integration, even the most powerful leap will collapse under the weight of old programs, trying to reclaim their place. But for now, just sit with this question. What parts of me am I still allowing to make decisions in my life, though I have outgrown them? And do they still have the right to speak for who I am? Take a breath. Not just for the lungs, for your timeline. Because if you made it this far in this material, you have already started what most people never dare to start. You questioned the authority of your past. You challenged the identity that held the pen of your reality. That in itself starts the shift. You may not feel like you jumped yet, but you have already moved. Something cracked, a thread loosened. The signal was sent. And that is how every quantum leap begins. Not with fireworks, but with frequency, which brings us here. You did it. You destroyed the old self. You released the version of you that kept you in the loop. You stood inside the new identity, even if only for a few minutes. And in that moment, the field shifted. The new observer took command of your life. But now comes the part no one talks about, the restructuring. Because the jump does not just mean entering a new timeline, it means becoming stable in it. And like any system that has run on the same frequency for years, when you suddenly install a new operating identity, there will be noise. You will start noticing strange things. People may react to you differently, not because you said something new, but because they feel it. Energy precedes language. Behavior shifts subtly. Some conversations no longer resonate. Some relationships will wobble, not because you reject them, but because they are tuned to the old version of you, the one you just released. But the most unexpected part is that the old timeline may try to pull you back. Not as punishment, not as failure, but as vibrational echo. You may suddenly feel overwhelm, emotions, uncertainty, not because you are wrong, but because you stepped out of a familiar frequency and your nervous system is still catching up. That is normal. Imagine a radio finally changing stations after years of static. For a while, there will be overlap, mixed signals, ghost frequencies, and in that noise, the old identity may whisper, "See, nothing changed. You are still the same." This is a test, not of strength, of clarity. Because reality does not shift cleanly. It shifts quantumly, which means the moment you enter a new state, everything that does not match starts to fall away. And what falls away often resists before leaving. You will be tempted to interpret discomfort as failure, but discomfort is just confirmation that the old code is breaking. And this is the moment when most people undo their jump. They collapse back into the old observer, not because it was better, but because it was familiar. So how to stay inside the new timeline? You do not force it. You do not pretend, you anchor it. Anchoring does not mean obsessively affirming. It does not mean pretending everything is fine when it is not. It means responding to life from the new identity, even when the world has not caught up yet. This is the real test of coherence. When the bank account still shows deficit, but you respond from abundance. When relationships still seem stuck, but you speak from wholeness. When fear knocks on the door, and you answer as your higher self, not the old one. Every time you choose the new observer in thought, in feeling, in action, you stabilize the field. Because here is what in the quantum realm, it does not reward effort. It mirrors consistency. The universe is not testing you, it is listening to you. And every subtle vibration you emit tells it who you believe yourself to be. So instead of asking why my new reality has not appeared yet, ask what version of me I amplified today. Here is where the jump becomes real. Not in moments of inspiration, but in moments of doubt. When you choose again and again to be who you decided to become. And yes, you will waver, forget, sometimes revert to old patterns. But every time you remember, every time you breathe and return to the new identity, you retune the field. Eventually, the old frequencies lose power. They fade, and what once felt like trying becomes natural, effortless, obvious. You do not fake it until you make it. You feel it until you stabilize it. There is a difference, and at some point, without even noticing, you will look back and realize the external changed. Not because you forced it, but because you became unshakable in your frequency. You stopped reacting from lack, stopped bargaining with limitations, stopped giving airtime to the self that never believed in you. And when that voice no longer dominates the channel, reality has no choice but to update the script. So here is what I want you to sit with before moving on. What one choice can you make today that only the version of you in the new timeline would make? Not a big leap, just one choice, one shift, one aligned moment of coherence. Because that is all it takes to start amplifying the new field. In the next few minutes, we will close the loop. We will talk about how to live in sustainable quantum awareness, where the jump is not something you do, but something you become. We will seal everything you learned into a way of seeing, living, and transmitting that upgrades not only your life, but your timeline itself. And so it begins. Not a leap that already happened, not a test that was part of the noise. This is the moment where everything inside you slows down, restructures, and settles, where the new version of you becomes the only version that makes sense. Because something subtle happens when you choose coherence over chaos again and again. The new identity stops feeling like a mask, stops feeling like a performance, and without notice, you became the version you used to visualize, not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding the one that could not hold it. This is true integration, where decisions feel quieter, but deeper, where answers come from truth instead of defense, where you no longer argue with old thoughts because they no longer belong to you. They were echoes from a previous field, from a previous you, and they no longer survive here. This is quantum made practical. Not philosophy, not poetry, but your life. You will notice old patterns stop activating you. You will feel emotions that arise and dissolve, without needing to become your identity. You will speak differently, move differently, not because you are trying to act like someone new, but because you are no longer pretending to be someone you are not. And this is the full cycle. The observer that used to collapse your reality is replaced not by magic, but by choice, repetition, breath, awareness. And in this, the entire field around you, people, possibilities, coincidences, start arranging into new patterns. Not because reality rewards you, but because reality simply responds to the truth of who you now are. So what happens next? You live it. You walk. You wake up. You feel. And every time life presents contrast, as it will, you ask yourself one simple question. Which version of me is invited right now? That is all. This is the code. These are the gates. You are not meant to live from control. You are meant to live from signal. And your signal becomes clearer with every aligned choice, every adjusted breath, every moment of remembering. Because in truth, you did not jump into another timeline. You destroyed the illusion of separation between you and the version of you that was always waiting. That life was never unreachable. That self was never unreachable. Entanglement was always active. You just stopped ignoring it. So now the only thing left to do is live as if this is normal. Because when it becomes normal, it becomes real. Your timeline does not upgrade through force. It upgrades through embodiment. Now breathe. Feel what is different in your body. Not what you hope for, but what you already know. This is your signal. This is your anchor. This is your proof. And before leaving, let me leave you with this. If this material found you at the right time, if it reminded you of something ancient inside you, then this is your sign, not to let the algorithm decide when you remember again. Subscribe to this channel not because you were told to, but because something inside you wants to stay connected to this field, this resonance, this rhythm, this frequency that you now carry. And tell me in the comments not just what changed, but what new reality you are ready to embody. Describe it even in one sentence, not as a desire, but as recognition. Let your words be the signal that tells the field, I am already here. Because when you name the life you now live, you activate it in others, and the field responds in kind. This is how we shift together.